Hi there, it's Sarah from Inspire Tarot. Welcome to the channel. I hope you're doing well today. Let's see what message Spirit has for us. Well, Death card come out first again. How exciting. Hello, Pose. So, yeah, the Death card is all about rebirth. Ending and rebirth means it's the end of a major phase. We go through lots of phases on our spiritual journey. Thankfully, we do get breaks and things in between. Otherwise, it would be a bit intense if it was just heavy all the time. Spirit does give us a bit of a rest to integrate. That's just how the journey seems to naturally pan out. But yeah, this card is very much about transformation, about shifting our beliefs. As we release guilt, it's easier to shift our beliefs. We just can seem to jump up and make a shift in consciousness, which we kind of didn't really feel as if we could do before. It's almost as if we can see life from a different perspective, from a more zoomed out perspective. And it kind of shocks us sometimes because it can feel like quite a big jump. Or sometimes you feel a big jump or you get a glimpse of what you've shifted to, and then you just need to clear everything that's still in the way, which can feel uncomfortable, which then comes up on the back of it. But it's all part of the process, and we just gotta knuckle down and get on with it gracefully, knowing that we're being helped and that we are really doing this to ourselves. So as much as we feel aggrieved and disgruntled and things, it's our job to break free of our own darkness and our own patterns. It's not really anything to do with anyone else. We can blame other people as much as we like, but it's our stuff. So I think this card is quite fun, that it shows a skeleton all dressed up on a horse. It's just like, to hell with this world, essentially, which is kind of funny. And that's the attitude that you have to have sometimes with the world. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that God would create something that lives and dies and then gets sad, and all these things that we just kind of assume as normal. I've never really believed that God created this universe. Even as a child, I thought either God didn't create this universe, or I don't believe in God. That was kind of, I was just, I just thought if this universe is real, then I don't believe in God. And it wasn't really until I found out that the universe was a dream that God didn't create that it was plausible to me that it could be imaginal, because I couldn't really think of any other reason how it could possibly come about. It didn't really seem to make sense to me how it could be here. But then to kind of go deep into metaphysical teachings and find out that it isn't actually really here at all. It's literally just a break from reality. It's literally just a hallucination that we dream. And people who have near-death experiences get to see themselves from outside the body. They get to see themselves from a perspective that you wouldn't expect that you'd be able to see if you were actually in a body. And yeah, and then I've had mystical experiences myself where you just get to experience life from such a radically different perspective that you just know that the world can't possibly be real. And I know when I first started being told that the world was an illusion, I thought, oh, hello, Puss. Down you go, sweetheart. I didn't really understand what the illusion was like, but over time, as I've shifted my mind, I can see that the versions of people I attract is very different, and I feel different inside. The world is much softer and gentler, and as I feel less guilty, I attract less people who blame me and shame me, and I just kind of move around in the world feeling much safer. So I think sometimes we expect the changes to be very drastic, but and they are drastic, but they're kind of subtle as well at the same time. It's the spirit doesn't want to shock and frighten us as we waken up. It just kind of happens gradually. So it is a beautiful process. The Knight of Pentacles and the Hierophant. So the Knight of Pentacles is a very slow moving energy that's very practical and disciplined, very, very dedicated to its cause, is quite happy to persevere, it's just very reliable and patient, and is prepared to work hard and be methodical, which is what we need with the lessons. The mind training does require us to be extremely methodical, because it can feel quite arduous, especially in the beginning when you're not really seeing any shifts. You don't feel much different and your external world isn't shifting. In fact, you might find that the external world becomes quite wonky, as a lot of your dark thoughts are shifted up. I notice this with my cats when I go through periods of integration, that they fight more than normal. And I say to my son, do the cats fighting more? And he doesn't notice it. It's because it's in my perception and not in his. So yeah, it's funny. It's strange how it goes. The external world does shift with whatever we're shifting. And if we have a really wonky day, then we notice that things around us can be extremely wonky, with all sorts of things going wrong. And you think, wow, the matrix is really glitching today. Oh, I don't know what's going on. But it just helps us get back on track, because whenever I feel like my external world is really wonky, it still kind of unsettles me a bit, even though at the same time I know it's not real. It just makes me think, oh, what's going on in my mind, in the unconscious mind, that I really need to look at. But always reminding ourselves that the external world isn't real, and all of the darkness is not real. And we just got to keep facing it with the spirit and lean in. And as we go through it, we can see that it's not real. When we can change the perception in our mind, then all is well. The Hierophant is very wise, a bit of a spiritual guru, interested in theology. Yeah, definitely. When you look at this character on this card, it's definitely somebody who's like a spiritual guide. So it may be that you need to seek spiritual counsel, or talk to somebody who kind of understands the process, because you can't talk to people who aren't going through a spiritual awakening and not really going to understand the process. And it's very challenging, and it can be difficult in the beginning to find people who are on the same path, but over time the spirit will bring people in. As you show that you're deeply committed to the journey, the spirit will bring more and more people in to help you. And then you really do, if you mix with people who are in a bit of a miracle state of mind, who are very focused on purpose, then you kind of get sucked in and drawn in to their pattern. You know, it says, you hear people say that you become like the person the 5 people you spend the most time around. So if you spend time around people who are very committed and very focused on their spiritual path, then they're just very authentic, and they will talk about when they feel happy, and they will talk about when they feel dark, and it just gives you comfort to do and be the same. So yeah, the Two of Swords. So the Two of Swords is about having a decision to make in the mind. So in the flow of this reading, I would say that the decision is always between the ego and the spirit. And it does get easier over time to choose the spirit more and more, especially as we get to see that choosing the spirit does bring us peace and joy. And then we build trust in the spirit. The more miracles we have, the more we get used to the ebb and flow of the journey, the easier it is to choose the spirit, and to choose the spirit faster, because as we start to love ourselves more, we don't like the discomfort. When we don't love ourselves as much and we feel guilty, we attract unpleasant experiences, and we kind of enjoy it. I know that sounds a bit macabre, but we do have a sick attraction to guilt and fear. We think we deserve it, and we kind of love it, even though that seems really sick and twisted. But this is the mortal dream. It's a world of death. You know, we've come here with these quite disturbing thoughts in our minds, and we really do have to face the fact that it is nonsense. So yeah, and we do need a lot of help from the spirit, because to navigate yourself out of the dream is virtually impossible, because you've wound yourself into it by your distortions, and then these distortions just reinforce themselves, especially when they become patterns and they loop over and over. So we do very, very much need the Spirit to guide us out of the dream. And I know when I have things that stick in my mind and I get the Spirit to explain things to me, it's always very surprising. I mean, it makes perfect sense because it's always for the good of the whole. It's for the good of anybody who is involved, the way it's explained, and it just seems so clever. But yeah, the Spirit is very, very wise and sees the bigger picture, so it's all good. And the Six of Cups is a card about balance, giving and receiving. No, it's not. It's about happy memories. It's a nostalgia card. That card kind of reminds me of the Seven of Cups. But yeah, no, the Six of Cups is all about the past. And I know that we're not, the past doesn't really exist, but we do get very much stuck in the past in our minds. And we tend to get stuck in the stories and believe that they're real just because we think something's happened to us. And then we think, oh, I have to remember that that's happened to me and be careful so it doesn't happen to me again. But we also bring our distortions with us, so we do have to be very careful. In some ways we want to be wise, and in other ways we need to forget the past completely, and just trust in the Spirit and treat every new moment like a blank slate. So the Six of Cups is really a card about, yeah, seeing everybody from our past differently. So this is something that I've had to do to heal a lot of my relationships. I obviously came into this life with choosing quite a lot of challenging relationships, and I do feel though predominantly I've healed the vast majority of them. I still feel as though the relationship with myself needs a lot of work, but I think that's the case for most people, that they struggle with feeling guilty, feeling like they should know better and they should do more. And of course we are subject to our own blind spots. With other people it's easier to see, but with our own blind spots it can be quite challenging. But whenever we look back at anything, we want to be looking back at it through the eyes of love. I think there is a line in the Course that says something along the lines of the holiest place on earth is where an ancient hatred has become a present love. And that's just a beautiful thing. And sometimes connections can be very intense, and we can actually have to carry them out in numerous lifetimes because we literally fail to resolve them in each lifetime. And the Spirit is always guiding us, but there is always something in us that knows that they feel this much stronger intensity with some people than others, and it's just unresolved forgiveness from a past lifetime that we really need to buckle up and get on with. And we do get better at it over time, and we get faster at it. You know, we clock it straight away and then think, right, I'm not going to torture myself, because forgiveness is really for ourselves, it's not for anybody else. The Hermit card. So the Hermit card is all about resting and taking time out, about taking solitude to rebalance. And quite often when we are dealing with past stories and past people and past distortions, there is a lot of work that we need to do on our own, because we need to separate ourselves from our memories and from people, particularly if they're traumatic. We need to really learn to separate ourselves, because we can feel very enmeshed with people, and yeah, it can be quite unpleasant at times, but the Spirit can always guide us out of our distorted thinking. So I mean, I really love hermity phases. I think they're great, especially if I've processed a lot of darkness and then I start to feel creative, I start to feel inspired for a new project. And that's one of the nice things about it, that you always come out a little bit stronger and wiser. And I do think the time that we spend for ourselves it does strengthen us. It's really good for just really getting to know ourselves. And the more anchored we are in God, that we don't feel lonely anymore. I know earlier in the journey I would feel terribly disconnected from myself and from the light. I had no concept of God or oneness, really. Not in the feeling sense. I mean, I kind of mentally understood it, but I certainly didn't feel it. So, but the more we trust, the more we just surrender to the process and allow the Spirit to do the work, the better it gets. These cards are the wrong way around. Three of Cups. So the Three of Cups card is all about celebrating with friends. It's about having fun with friends and reconnecting with friends. Quite often this card comes out when we've been working too much. We need to just take a load off and have a bit of fun. So it can be a reunion or a celebration. It's usually just to get together, and quite often we need our friends for emotional support. Or it could be that we go to a retreat. It just means that we need to connect with others, we need to share and express, and kick back and just have a change of scenery. A change of scenery. A change is as good as a rest, as they say. The Nine of Swords. So the Nine of Swords is basically the card of being a bit of a tortured soul. So if we have any issues in groups of people, for example, if there's more than 3 people, we can find that it can trigger up triangle patterns where we end up in, so the reverse of the Three of Cups is where you get triangulation, or you get gossip, that kind of thing, where you end up in negative patterns. And I think that's something that can get very complicated in relationships and can literally drive us crazy. So we can end up very much in this tortured soul kind of mentality where we start thinking, we project out our dark thoughts, and then we see other people as against us. And then that can become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So everything is always an opportunity to keep our mind aligned with God, and remember not to get stuck in looping in hypotheticals, because if we focus on something too much, we have to face it. We will have to physically live in it, and it does take a while for negative things to shift in that direction. But I think we've all done it, where we've thought a lot of negative thoughts, and it does come and bite us. So yeah, the Nine of Swords we need to watch for sure. These not so good patterns. The Five of Cups. The Five of Cups is a card about sadness and disappointment and regret. So yeah, on the back of the Nine of Swords, it's just, if we're not feeling good, we can end up feeling very bitter and pessimistic, and we need to take stock of it. But sometimes we do need to go into these really dark places in order to heal. When we don't love ourselves as much, we yeah, it's almost like we really need to hit rock bottom and get into a real sad state before we feel compelled to turn it around. We really don't know our advances from our retreats, and yeah. So yeah, we need to just learn to move on with this one. It feels, I can feel the shift in the energy when I'm reading the card. It's so, just feels so heavy. But it's all part of the process, and we just need to feel the pain, have a good cry, let it all out, and move on. And remember that in the Five of Cups card, there's 3 cards that have tipped over, but there's normally 2 that are upright, and we need to focus on those and move on. And whenever we focus on the cups that are spilled over, then anything that doesn't make us feel good is always a mistake. Always a mistake. and a perfect opportunity to see with the Spirit and see the blessing in the lesson. And the last card out is the King of Wands. The King of Wands, he looks very powerful. Looks like he's giving the finger, but I'm sure he's not. So the King of Wands is an inspirational leader, and to become an inspirational leader you do have to go through a lot of darkness. You know, you do have to be able to be very resilient and see that there is ebb and flow to the journey, and that we are guided by the Spirit, and the universe is ruled by love, and that we're always being refined in our beliefs. So I think the King of Wands, I think of Jesus when I think of the King of Wands. Somebody who's very healthy, somebody who's very sort of compassionate and fair, somebody who's very visionary and can think on their feet with the Spirit, somebody who can lead people and is very passionate and empowering. So somebody who is like a spiritual teacher or some sort of leader, teaching people how to take their power back. And we can't do this kind of role or be this kind of character without experience the highs and the lows and navigating them and coming back stronger. So yeah, this is a powerful reading today. I like it. It felt a bit heavy towards the end, but I think that last card redeemed it. So thank you, Spirit. Right, have a good day. Love you all. Bye.